Hello, I'm Rajnish Khanna.
And I'm Brigid McNally,
Welcome to Terra Science.
where reality matters.
So, here on this podcast, we'll be talking about food, nutrition, the food system itself, and how much we know about it, and how it operates, and what things that we should know about, and also some science. We'll try to simplify all the research that goes on, and how important that is, and what we should know about so that we can make better informed decisions. But at the same time, I'm also interested in consciousness. And I've been doing some research in that area. And we'll also talk about consciousness. So, just to think about what is consciousness, Bridget? What do you think consciousness is?
I feel like I don't have a huge breadth of knowledge regarding what consciousness really is. My understanding of it is that it has a lot to do with your awareness and your mindfulness of your everyday understanding of the world and actions and what you have to control and what is subconscious. I think I've also heard, there's unconsciousness and consciousness used in that general sense of the term. But when I think of consciousness, I'm kind of thinking of the subconscious versus conscious realities and how that impacts, your decisions in everyday life. So really, to boil it down, is your awareness and the way that you're reacting to the world around you.
Yeah, so I see. So, one of the more commonly used words to describe consciousness is actually awareness, like you mentioned. So, when we think about consciousness, many people will say, well, it's awareness. That's an interesting concept to think about. So we are aware, and we are aware not only of ourselves but also of our environment and surroundings, right? So then there are two different questions that arise from it, and that's what those are the kinds of questions that scientists deal with. So one question that remains largely unanswered is, why are we aware, or even what makes us aware, right? So um, then there are many other aspects of this that continue in that direction. Are plants aware of who they are, or who is aware and who is not aware? So there are just so many things. So when you said awareness, that's a really easiest way to describe consciousness. But starting to look at it a bit deeper, why are we aware? For example, how would you answer that? Why do we have to be aware?
Um, I guess awareness in that sense, it can be tied to survival. It's
Hmm.
important for us to be aware of our surroundings and to be aware of consequences of our actions, per se. I think then there also is the part of, consciousness where I believe we're limited in what we can be fully aware of, because if we took in so much information
Hmm.
on the daily basis, sometimes that's overwhelming. So we have to limit it to some extent to be able to function and get things done and be productive. So there's that level to it as well. I guess I have a question in reverse then.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to really understand what consciousness is? Why do we have to figure it out? I mean, I want to understand it more too, but what is the importance behind that, and why is there so much science behind it as well?
Well, science, basic science, tries to answer basic questions. And we as humans, we like to ask all sorts of questions, including, why do we even exist? How did the universe start? And so
Right.
consciousness is one of those very, very difficult questions. And it's been known from the start of humankind that we have utilized our awareness of our surroundings, and then learned or taught ourselves how to make tools, how to create our societies, and then make our living lifestyles better and better and better. So, understanding the basic principles and the process of this awareness is at the heart of who we are, right? But it is also known as the hard problem. It is actually, if you just ask a scientist what is the hard problem, they will know exactly what you're talking about, because the hard problem is the problem of knowing what consciousness is. So that's why I think there is so much effort and need for our understanding of consciousness. But at the same time, it's an interesting topic at another level, because if I want to learn details of how something works, like for example, in school, some people may have dissected a frog, right? So by dissecting a frog, you can learn how some of the processes in the frog work. But I will never know what it is to be like a frog. I will not know the frog itself. So what is that consciousness? What is that awareness that made the frog? I can learn all the mechanics of it.
I guess that yeah,
That
I see what you mean. I guess I have a question. I don't know if you're prepared for this. What is, say, like the difference between science of consciousness and brain science or neurology, right? Is there a difference there in trying to understand consciousness versus just the chemical interactions in your brain?
And so that's a very important and big question. Obviously, neurobiologists and people who study brain, they who are interested in understanding consciousness, they approach it in a very different way than perhaps other people might approach it. So many of the scientists, they have the opinion that consciousness is a construct of the brain. So it is created inside the brain, where all the chemicals and hormones and neurons and their their everything is working together to create this experience of consciousness. And that at the time of death, these functions stop, and then there is nothing left. So the consciousness that was is deconstructed, and it's gone. But if you look at religions and look at ancient cultures, that's not their point of view. And the many cultures and religions are just cultural beliefs have been that there is some sort of energy or something that may be the source of consciousness. And in some cultures, including Hindu and many of these other, what people believe is that consciousness continues even after death. So there is still something that's what like reincarnation is. Or so there's all sorts of different ideas that people have been putting forth about consciousness.
Yeah, I think that's super fascinating. When essentially we also don't really fully understand it, and through any of those lenses.
Right. Yeah. And the other issue with that is that when we don't fully understand it, we are open to listening or following many sorts of different ideas, and can and it has happened and can be taken advantage of, because we may start believing something that gives benefits to someone who's telling us what it is, right? Could be monetary benefits or whatever it might be. So it's important and important to have some understanding at some level of who we really are, what makes us conscious, and are we that different from other animals and plants? What makes us so superior that we can control so many environments and basically go and extract things from the planet to use for ourselves? And
I
should
think,
we be doing that consciously?
right. I think going back to the aspects of religion, I think are really fascinating. I grew up in a non religious household and I didn't have a whole lot of understanding. The most I had was visiting the Buddhist temple down the street, basically from my house. We were there every week, but also not very engaged in the religion itself, let alone any other religion. But as I've gotten older, I've had more experience like talking to people about it, their different religions and experiences with it. And what I've seen is, although, you know, everybody has a different type of interpretation of what it means to be human, what it means to have values and morals, and some sort of a code to live by. It they could be vastly different, and that's okay. But they're getting some sort of a reasoning out of it and an understanding to, we don't understand consciousness. We don't understand, these big questions about the universe and like how are we human, basically. But religion in those senses serve some sort of a reasoning and comfort in not knowing exactly how it works. It gives some sort of a answer system to believe in, and I think there's a lot of value in that too. You
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
also maybe looking at it from the science of consciousness, that is your belief system in some sense that helps understand and put things into more of a logical sense as well if you're not a religious person.
Right. And I mean, religion plays an important role and has played an important role in, like you said, comforting people in many different ways. Especially, lives are full of tragedies and accidents and things like that. And when we face diversity or some issues, religion has been there to support or provide comfort and uh, help think through why certain things may have happened or how to deal with them. So if we were more aware of what it is that consciousness is, perhaps then that can help also reduce pain, um, can reduce depression, can reduce many of these things that currently we deal with as a human society. And maybe also then we learn a few lessons about how we should be treating other living things, other living organisms, if we start to get a better understanding of what consciousness is.
I really really resonate with that aspect. I feel like a lot of the things I've experienced with any type of suffering has also had a lot to do with just my conception of my reality, basically. How I thought and, what I understood of my own thoughts versus what I could control of my own thoughts and my own, perception of my experiences, which has to do with your consciousness and your understanding or awareness of, even just yourself. And it boils down to even those little things like, you have a thought, that doesn't mean you have to believe that thought. It's things like that when it comes to the mental health side are super important and can have a great impact on a lot of people.
One can think that thoughts are perhaps a product of consciousness, right? So because consciousness is at the basic level, that the things that we can think are coming out of us, of our awareness, and like you said, they can be short-lived, and whether or not you act on them, but it's also linked to survival, like you were saying before. So our ability to become aware and then produce a thought may be at the heart of us. What is that? Flight or flee or fly,
Fight or
fight or
flight.
flight, right? So,
Yeah.
it's the thought: should I fight or should I run? So that's really important to have that understanding. But at the same time, we should also start to think about the thoughts, or if they're products, then they are a little bit distinct from us. So there's a slight distance between us and our thoughts. This is why you can, at some level, you have the ability to discard or accept your thoughts. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
So that starts to now already show that, okay, consciousness is deeper than the ability to think.
Yes. And I think that is more of what I do understand of it. Summing it up as awareness is one thing, but when I put it into the perspective of thoughts, I think there's different levels of that. There's thoughts that just come into your head, and you did not sum them there, and you believed it like as it was just your opinion. And but then if you take a second and kind of look at it almost from a third person point of view, you can separate yourself from that thought and act according to being more present in whatever reality it is of that moment.
Right.
And I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah. So there are many aspects of consciousness that we will talk about, and we'll have guests, known guests, in this field as well. I'm interested in how consciousness works, and I've been using plants to study consciousness. Not to say that whether plants are conscious or not, but they are living organisms, and many things that occur at the biochemical level and cellular level is common between all living organisms that we all have made from cells. So perhaps we can start to understand something from plants. So I've been doing some research on that, and I'm actually co-organizing a workshop, which is in at the Science of Consciousness conference. And this workshop, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
So this is a workshop, but let's go back a little bit. So this conference is called the Science of Consciousness, and it's from April 18th through 22nd, and it's the Center for Consciousness Studies at University of Arizona. And so there are really great, eminent speakers. I'm really looking forward to listening to the latest updates in this. And in this conference, there are several workshops. So there's the whole program that is on the web, but then there are these workshops. And so the workshop that I am co-organizing is called Plants and Consciousness, and I'm co-organizing this with Professor Bruce McIver from Stanford University, and we will have really great guests in this conference. And let's see, I think it's listed.
And is this open for anybody to attend if they wanted to, or is it a closed event?
No, it's an open meeting. There is, like any conference, there is a registration fee, and it is a hybrid. So
Okay.
you don't have to be on in Arizona. You can join and participate in the conference online as well.
Fantastic. Then I will put all those links in the description below. So if you're interested
Yeah.
in tuning in to Raj's conference and workshop, that would be great.
Yeah, that'll be great. So we'll have Deepak Chopra. We'll have Patricia Gonzalez. She's a Native American and has done work on this in this area, and she'll talk about ideas about plant consciousness from that perspective. Then we have Dennis McKenna, who is really well known and all his work in the psychedelics area. So we'll have these guests, and Bruce and I will be are co-hosting it. So I look forward to people, if they're interested, to joining the workshop.
Alrighty, thank you guys for tuning in for today's episode on consciousness. You can look in the description below for all of our different links. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and we'll also link Raj's Science of Consciousness conference that's coming up in April that you don't want to miss. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again.
And thank you everyone for tuning in, and see you next time.
See you next time.